But one man's musical innovation took these sounds and feelings and channeled them into house music.
Larry Heard,
that's the guy right there.
In fact, we can almost say we're all doing his music. If you're making modern stuff, 'cause he was the first to do the acid stuff and do the quote-unquote deep stuff, and everybody bit after that.
In this video, we'll examine the musical developments that made Larry Heard a game-changing house producer. It's these innovations that make his music feel fresh and timeless today, 35 years into his career.
The moment that I met you, I knew that you would be special in my life.
When Larry Heard made his first house track, Mistri of Love, in 1984, he wasn't even sure what house music was. He started out as a drummer in 1977, playing covers and prog rock. But he felt creatively stifled, and his musical ideas weren't taken seriously.
I don't think it's really all that customary for the drummer to have creative ideas. They just play the beat. So I left the last band that I was in and bought myself a synthesizer and a drum machine. One of the guys on the block said that it sounded like the music they played at the warehouse. Okay, what is this warehouse place? Maybe be able to test out what I'm doing, see if it relates to anything that's going on. See if anybody likes it.
To understand Heard's place in history, let's examine origins of house music in his home city, Chicago. Jesse Saunders' 1984 track, On and On, is a viable contender for the first house record ever released. If you listen to it today, it has a lot in common with European synth pop. And you can sense the influence of the looping techniques Frankie Knuckles was employing in his DJ sets. As house music began to take form, many early anthems were jacking, but couldn't be called deep. And Marshall Jefferson's Move Your Body achieved huge dance floor status, but lacked the musical sophistication of early Mr. Fingers tracks. It's an anthem in large part because it utilises a classic 1-4-5 chord progression, which had already been used in countless hits, such as the Troggs' Wild Thing. Now check out Mistri of Love, the first house track that Larry Heard ever made. From the beginning, he was pushing the musicality of house music forward. The bass line uses clusters of notes, which also incorporate half steps. This combination lends a rudimentary beat track a moodier, more complex feel. You can hear him attempting to burst out of a musical framework, though he doesn't quite have the chops for it yet. His old bandmates were unimpressed.
We were playing this Mahavishnu orchestra stuff and Zappa stuff, and next thing you know, this simple, straightforward boom, 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 boom. They were like, okay, what is this?
Released the same year as Move Your Body, it's tough to overstate the impact of Can You Feel It? It saw Heard's craft come on leaps and bounds. Heard hand-played the bass line, and he introduced a series of minor seventh chords that opened up a world of possibility for house music. It's chord extensions like these that gave the music of composers like Debussy and Satie a bittersweet stillness that feels deep. Listen to the lead on a much later track from Heard. And note the similar feeling in Satie's Gymnopédie No. 1. Listen to how far he had developed this concept just a few years after Can You Feel It?
Girl, please don't turn your back on me. What
What About This Love is the track that landed Larry Heard a major label contract.
Seems it was all in vain, 'cause now all I had is pain.
At this point, he's expanded his arsenal of jazzy seventh chords. The staccato piano chords switch between F and D sharp minor sevenths. Underpinning a serpentine lead. The sustained pads that would go on to define deep house fill out the breakdown. Heard's own vocals are the finishing touch on a track that's smooth, catchy, and a little sad.
What about my kisses? Did they mean anything to you? What about this love?
Though the East Coast had its own movement, pioneered by the likes of Boyd Jarvis and perfected later on by the Burrell brothers, for the most part, other dance producers were following Heard's musically sophisticated lead. Larry Heard understood that house music could make people feel just as easily as it could make them dance. His innovations expanded the possibilities of house music, introducing a musical and emotional complexity that allowed it to stand alongside jazz, disco, and R&B, encouraging other producers to experiment with mood and tempo. This was how Larry Heard made house music deep.
You are my dream.
I've never followed the status quo. It doesn't matter what's popular or what the peak time tempo is. Where the song feels right is where it feels right.
The moon can compare to your beams.
Just heard the documentary interview, so to speak, in regards to the man known as Larry Heard, one of the big grandfathers of the music, if not the grandfather of deep house, and looked up to in the house community as one of the giants within the music. He really is still making music to this day, and still spellbinding people across the world to his music. Hopefully you liked that documentary about him. Give us an email if you did, which is this djmystery40@gmail.com.
that sunrise and that sunset. But when night falls, but the music, that sunrise and that sunset. But when night falls, but the music, that sunrise of color stay right through your hand. That sunset in the clouds turn back into sand. But when night falls, just swept away with no helping hand. But the music is weak and back to your hand. That sunrise of color